Hey there, this is Honest Klaud, and I'm Eric Elliott. Today we're tackling a Star Wars conspiracy iceberg I put together. These theories are about Star Wars, not that steel beam melting bullshit. Let's get started. First up is Darth Jar Jar. This one has circulated on the internet for the better part of a decade. Even Binks' actor Ahmed Best endorsed the conspiracy. It claims that Jar Jar never actually was a clumsy, silly Gungan, but he was actually a gnarly Sith Lord. You see, stepping in crap and saying icky icky goo was just one step to creating a loyal Sith cult in Exegol. People all over the internet have pointed out his fighting, his integral connection to important characters, and the fact that he gave emergency powers to Palpatine. I don't have faith in this theory, and I think for many people it's a headcanon that allows them to like Jar Jar in the prequels overall more. If you want to know what happens to Jar Jar after Episode 3, in a canon book series named Aftermath, we find out he became a homeless clown on Naboo. The Ewoks ate stormtroopers is another popular one, a theory that goes back before the advent of the internet. They say the Bright Tree villagers had quite the feast after their defeat at Andor. Many point to the fact that the Viet Cong Care Bears kidnapped Luke, Han, and Chewbacca to roast them over a fire. And the fact that one of them uses the helmets to make sick beats doesn't help. Canon material pushes the idea as a joke. In Forces of Destiny, Ewoks nearly cook stormtroopers, and in the Shattered Empire comic, two rebels question the mystery meat the Ewoks fed them. I think we can say they are cute and vicious. Jedi Master Mace Windu is still alive. Co-signed by Samuel Jackson himself, it poses that Windu's window woe, where he was zapped, hand severed, and defenestrated at 500 meters, was nothing. Defenders of this theory say that top 20 shiny bald head would be intact because of how prolific of a seasoned Jedi he is, and that he could leap with ease. Many fans have wanted Jackson to return to playing the character, maybe with a shaggy beard and a robot hand, similar to Luke Skywalker. If you ask me, just leave him dead. He doesn't need to be brought back. Like, we need death to actually mean something. You can't just have everyone be brought back. Lucasfilm Disney will remake / retcon the sequels. No. Palpatine created Anakin. This is a theory that has created a lot of chatter amongst Star Wars fans. Viewers became curious about how Shmi Skywalker had a mystical virgin birth to produce Space Jesus, who would grow up to become Samurai Hitler. Palpatine talked about manifesting life using the dark side of the Force. And to topple it all off, in a canon Star Wars comic, it depicts a vision of Palps manipulating Shmi's womb. Not in that way. Star Wars is in the same universe as Indiana Jones. For decades, many fans have believed that Star Wars takes place in the same continuity where an adult archaeologist smashed a 15-year-old girl. Both are Lucasfilm IPs, and they have both made nods and Easter eggs to one another. Temple of Doom has Club Obi-Wan. Luthen and Dryden have both owned the fertility idol. And in Crystal Skull, Indy says,
I've got a bad feeling about this.
I'll give this theory 4 out of 5 short rounds being the GOAT. Han's carbonite dreams are the life of Indiana Jones, similar to the previous theory, but mostly exists because your mom's man crush, Harrison Ford, plays both characters. Star Wars aliens are racialized metaphors. This theory / accusation has been leveled at the series for many years. Tusken Raiders are Arab Bedouins, or Native Americans, and Luke's farm family are white settlers. Some believe that Ewoks are Congo Pygmies. Jabba and the slaves are an Arab Orientalist caricature complete with an exotic harem and a hookah?
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
The Nemoidians are East Asian dignitaries, Sababa is Chicano, and Watto is just anti-Semitic. There's no other way around it. In recent, we've had Baba Joe, who, I mean, come on, he's Chinese, and the Aki Aki, who are definitely Indian Hindus who use holly, they dance joyfully, and they wear saris. I don't necessarily think any of these creators are actually hateful, but I do think they suffer from unconscious ignorance, and they work a little too hard to do homages to older films. Kylo Ren is a toxic Star Wars fanboy. Particularly for The Force Awakens, he's obsessed with the history of the main characters of the original trilogy, believes he is destined to continue the legacy in his own view. He's a cosplayer who praises Darth Vader, he's entitled, he's deeply insecure, he throws tantrums when he can't control the plot of the movie, and He also wants to smash a woman he hates. Boba Fett killed Owen and Beru. Several years before they were shown to be sexy, fans have theorized that Boba Fett is the one that turned them into stove gunk. Theorists point out the fact that Boba Fett was on Tatooine during the film, and that bounty hunters have been known to do business with the Empire. But in the canon novel, A Certain Point of View, which tells POVs of characters like Boba Fett, it makes no mention of such events. So Boba Fett did not set the Larses on. Fire! Rey is a Kenobi. Oh yes, from 2015 to 2019, the internet had a Steve Wilkos level of parentage in question about Daisy Ridley's character. Some argue she might be the niece or the granddaughter of the Jedi. Both characters have British accents, both have strong connections to the Force, and in The Force Awakens we hear Alec Guinness and Ian McGregor's voice being spoken to Rey in a vision. She has a clone offspring dad and a mother who definitely wouldn't be related to Kenobi.
I won't change my mind on anything, regardless of the facts that are set out before me.
R2-D2 is always swearing. Maybe not all the time, but...
Hey, Sacred Heartland, watch the language.
Kylo Ren murdered Luke's other students. A lot of people that saw Last Jedi think that Star Wars Hot Topic went on a homicide spree against his peers. However, in the canon Rise of Kylo Ren comic series, Ren tapped into his rage after his confrontation with his uncle and caused a lightning storm, the fire of which caused his peers to die. The killing didn't have intent. Star Wars takes place in our universe. People point to the fact that in Spielberg's film E.T., our lumpy freak sees a trick-or-treater dressed as Yoda and he says home. Believers bring up the very uniquely earthly expressions such as see you in hell, sitting ducks, and big ass. The universe also has a lot of humans, so where did the primates come from? I'm indifferent to the theory though. Palpatine killed Padme. This theory believes that Padme didn't die from a broken heart after birthing the twins, but it was by the forced manipulation of Justin Cheever to further manipulate Vader. I would say it's in the realm of possibility. Jaina Calrissian. Okay, it's not just because they're black. We know Lando lost his daughter when she was little and was possibly kidnapped by the First Order to turn into a stormtrooper, just like Jaina. Also in Tross, they both appreciate archery and they play the same song between both of them. When they sit down together, that was played between Luke and Leia when Luke told sister about their siblinghood. It's unlikely there's a parenting connection between them because Lando's daughter was named Kadara. One of the reasons Lando was on Pasaana because he was hoping that he could find clue to her whereabouts. If Kadara had made it 30 years, there's a chance that the Resistance killed her during the Battle of Exegol, just blown her away. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. Force-sensitive Bad Batch. From Hunter's intuitive senses and Tech's Anakin-esque racing proficiency, some argue that they have high midichlorian counts. Maybe that's what makes them so different from the other clones. Via experimentation, and not the kind of experimentation where you go vegan for a weekend and you realize you're a fucking slob who craves fried chicken. Grogu is Yoda and Yaddle's spawn. The only members of this unnamed alien species are these three. Each one follows the Jedi path via the Space Catholic Church, and Grogu grew up there. So Yoda's past may be spicier than expected, and I'm sure he gets aggressive with his cane. Barriss Offee is an Inquisitor. Barriss Offee was a super hot and super secretly evil Force user who betrayed her orange girlfriend Ahsoka during the prequel era. So far there's been no sign of her post the Clone Wars television series. Reylo is incest. This theory caught fire after we discovered that Rey is blood to old Crumble Fingers. This theory builds off Palpatine possibly creating Anakin, which will make them spiritual cousins. Some people who engaged with this conspiracy just used it as a way to attack Reylos on Twitter. But if they got together, how is spiritual cousins worse than I killed your father-in-law? Honestly, I think this theory would make more sense if someone argued that Leia had adopted Rey as her own daughter. So now they would be siblings.
Don't mention the sister's not related by blood, because that's really important.
Droids are slaves. In various mediums, we see droids kidnapped, sold, tortured, believed not to be real people, and forced to do labor against their will. The exploitation of droids is similar to transatlantic trade and the Ottoman Empire. Our heroes were corralled into a dim bilge of a ship, huddled with their race, only to be put on an auction block.
Stay woke.
Anakin used Jedi mind tricks on Padme. I just think George Lucas isn't good at writing romance. Poe Dameron is bisexual or pansexual. I mean, come on, this pretty motherfucker bit his lip after telling another dude he can keep his jacket and that it looks good on him. And if we're going more stereotypical, he's a drama queen, he's sarcastic, he looks to strengthen an older female figure, and that scarf. If Lando is on the rainbow, then Poe has to be up there too. Obi-Wan kept Anakin alive because of the prophecy. This is an interesting one. Some have also interpreted Obi-Wan as suffering from fear in this situation. But on one hand, he says, "You were the chosen one!" It was distressing for both parties. Eventually, Vader would get back at him with some Kingsford charcoal. On that fateful day, I think he was too compassionate to do the killing, and he was just too sad to watch his brother in that state. Anakin had become too hot. The mind of B2EMO was repurposed for K2SO. What, because of Cassian? K2SO was programmed by Nazis, and B2EMO is too sensitive to be K2. The most gangsta thing B2EMO did was zap a space dog. Meanwhile, K2 is about that life. Willow is in Star Wars, which is also the name of the protagonist, was an 80s film, and also had a recent Disney Plus series that was removed from the library. The face of this Lucasfilm franchise is none other than Warwick Davis, who has also played Star Wars Glup Shitos. Perhaps one day there will be a crossover, but chances seem diminutive. Why do I feel like I'm gonna get hate for that pun? Han Solo was a former Jedi. If true, this set of dialogue would have a lot of irony to it.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
You don't believe in the Force, do you?
Kid, I've flown from one side of this galaxy to the other. I've seen a lot of strange stuff, but I've never seen anything to make me believe there's one all-powerful force controlling everything.
Fans have pointed out his skill in piloting and how he was able to shoot a stormtrooper without looking. I think mild sensitivity is more likely than his clumsy ass surviving Order 66. Chirrut and Baze are lovers.
Alone? Good luck! I don't need luck. I have you!
I mean, probably. Let them fuck. Luke's green kyber crystal was Qui-Gon's. Not the worst idea considering that Obi-Wan's hut was still around after he did a now seniled, and after he would likely keep the weapon of his old master. Luke could have robbed this old man so he could put it into his own laser sword. However, in a canon comic we discovered Luke's lightsaber crystal was original. Moff Gideon is still alive. Also dubbed the Gideon mustache theory, it claims the Gideon we saw get Neville Sinclair wasn't the real one and that was just a clone. And the supposed tale to the audience was the lack of whiskers, because the clone in the tank had a smooth face. If you want my take,
Like, was that Gideon a clone? Because he doesn't have the mustache. I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Corky is Kenobi and Satine's baby. Corky was a minor character from the Clone Wars series that is supposed to be the nephew of Kenobi's old flame, Duchess Satine. Many people see a strong resemblance between Obi-Wan and Corky. I don't think they're related, but if they are, then that shows that Obi-Wan really should have wrapped up the lightsaber. Kino Loy is Snoke. There are people that believe this because they are played by the same actor. Somebody give these clowns a ride because they belong at the circus. Ewoks are a hive mind. Ewoks are unique. They are not a monolith. Kira tipped Enfys Nest to the train heist. Some theorists believe Kira, working up the chain of Crimson Dawn, had told the mulatto badass about the shipment and got Rio Durant and Val inadvertently killed. This assertion was denied by Emilia Clarke herself, and I don't think it's likely either. Kenobi is actually Luke and Leia's father. Look, I know I'm the man of many ships, and somehow I'll probably get a lot of hate for. But Kenobi did not get her preggers. It would make the narrative of the OT far less impactful and more convoluted with the whole redemption of Vader. Han ignited Kylo's lightsaber to kill himself. Not the worst theory ever, but it doesn't make much sense when you actually break down the facts. Look at the sense of betrayal in Han's eyes after he was stabbed by his own son. If Kylo actually didn't do it himself, which we see him push in and retract the blade, then there's little weight to the scene, and his character doesn't have as much development later. Kelleran Beck is related to Ahmed Beck. Kelleran Beck was the Jedi who protected Grogu during Order 66 and was the host of Jedi Temple Challenge. Meanwhile, Ahmed Beck was a shady bar patron in Attack of the Clones. Now, if you thought to yourself that these two look exactly the same, guess what? You are not racist. In this one judgment, I can say that. I can't say that for every instance in your life. Both characters are played by Ahmed Best, and he says that they're blood, and that's why they have the same last name. Palpatine used the Force to hide his age. Instead of the reflected electric discharge on Chief Rogers burning him, it gave him croissant skin. I mean, we saw his clone do some dementoring against the Dyad, so I would say it would make a lot of sense that he uses the Force to make himself look more presentable. Chewbacca is a Bigfoot. In a non-canon comic, even by legend standards, there was a story named Into the Great Unknown. In that story, Han and Chewie crash land the Falcon in 1800s North America. Solo dies and the Wookiee survives, and he roams the woods. Natives believe he was a Sasquatch. Years later, Indiana Jones finds Han's skeleton while the old Wookiee watches from the distance. But that's just a silly what-if story. Harrison Ford isn't laying a finger on Harrison Ford's bone unless he's smoking it. Ahsoka will become the daughter. For those who don't know, the daughter was a special being that served as the embodiment of the light side of the Force, who is also a pale woman with a deep plunge neck dress. She seemingly sacrificed herself to save Ahsoka by transferring her life energy to her. Afterwards, a little owl creature named Morai, who just shows up when there's mystical shit going on and happens to have very similar color palette, keeps an eye on Ahsoka. I think she's being set up to take up the mantle. The prequels are the sequels, a saga time loop. The theory poses that Rey grows into Shmi Skywalker and gives birth to Anakin, and then Chewbacca turns into Jar Jar after getting a disease and... Why am I reading this ridiculous shit? Luke is his own grandfather. Not too dissimilar from the previous theory, it posits that Luke traveled back in time to ski in his grandma, just like Fry in Futurama. Because virgin birth was too ridiculous, I guess. Look, I know I'm a nerd that talks a lot about incest, but this is something else. The Bad Batch are the Scar Squadron. Scar Squadron, aka Task Force 99, is a group of elite stormtroopers who fight the OT heroes in the canon comics. They have a hunter type, a heavy, a nerd, and a sniper. Seems awfully familiar to Clone Force 99. If this theory isn't true, then podcaster Chris Ryans will be sad, and we don't want that. Finn is a descendant of Captain Panaka. This theory was popularized by Scooby-Doo outfit wearer Andre Meadows, aka Black Nerd. Due to the lack of melanated characters in the franchise and the similar facial structure between Hugh Quarshie and John Boyega. But considering Panaka became an Imperial in canon and Finn was taken away from his family to become a stormtrooper, I doubt this. Bigger Luke. Do you like Luke? Maybe you like Luke, the stupid expanded universe clone of Luke. But what if I said there was
Another one.
Well, nerd, check this out. Some people believe that there are two whiny bitches in the OT. Luke and Bigger Luke, and the only reason this theory even exists is because in some shots the actor looks taller because of wardrobe and camera angles. Two Anakins. It's the same thing. Different fuckable Skywalker. Snoke was the stormtrooper who bonked his head. Come on, y'all. The bump wasn't even that harsh. Ezra was the other Yoda had in mind. Let's put aside that he's a very recent addition added to canon. The other, in fact, was our favorite socialist space mom, Leia. Sabe is Rey's grandmother. Padme's former handmaiden is too badass to let her daughter be stabbed by this dude.
Top of his head. Look at his lips.
Stormtroopers missed on purpose. I mean, they weren't playing with the chrome when it came to the Jawas. According to research by E.C. Henry, stormtroopers have been known to be 30 times more accurate than US soldiers in the Civil War. They just don't shoot main characters because of plot reasons. The Force is a virus. Considering that midichlorians are microbe-esque creatures in your blood that can be passed down genetically, I would say this isn't too far off. I would much rather be Kit Fisto than Anakin has an Oedipal complex. Perhaps not in the sexual sense, but Anakin definitely is an emotionally stunted mama's boy. By his own dialogue, he links and or equates his attachment and situational desire with Padme and Shmi. I think he used Padme as an affectionate surrogate, since Space Mary can't be there. Much like Rose attempted to fill the void of losing her sister with Finn. Ironically, the man who lost his child innocence and his mother was willing to slice up children and their mothers. Hashtag Anakin is an ethnic cleanser. Rathul, Tekla, and Saleh Manau are all related. Let me give y'all some context. In Phantom Menace, there's a Naboo citizen played by Mark Hamill's son, Nathan Hamill, whose name is Rathul Manau. Tekla Manau was a handmaiden of Padme who appears in Attack of the Clones and the Clone Wars. In the animated series, she gets absolutely wrecked by Space Kung Lao. Years later, Nathan Hamill played a resistance fighter named Saleh Manau. The actor suggests that this character is the grandson of everyone's favorite character, Rathul. Considering that 2 out of 3 of them have the same face and they all have the same name, I would say it's reasonable. Poe Dameron was a double agent. This theory perked up with the release of TFA. Some people believed that he was some type of Manchurian candidate that was activated after surviving the TIE Fighter crash, but obviously that did not go down. Always when making the dashing pilot sketchy, as if it weren't bad enough that Rise of Skywalker turned the most prominent Latino in Star Wars into a cocaine smuggler. Sorry. Orange cocaine. Leigh Brackett did ghostwriting for A New Hope. Brackett was one of the most prolific sci-fi authors ever. In the 1940s to the 1970s, she was the mother of space operas. She also ghostwrote many popular films from back in the day, like Hatari and Rio Bravo. Before her passing, the last thing that she had worked on was the script for The Empire Strikes Back. She is credited on the poster. Despite this one credit, there are fans that believe that she had a bigger hand in the early stages of development of the first movie. Especially since George Lucas has said, bleed on the page. Leigh Brackett's stories had an affinity for villains choking, biome planets, bickering tsundere romances, characters named Ben, ships named Falcon, mysterious force energies, laser swords, and hyperspace travel where starlight stretches. I'll leave this great video in the description so you can decide for yourself. Rey is a clone of Luke. The theory posits that the Emperor used Luke's severed hand to make a Lady Luke, but Daisy and Mark have distinctly different features, including eye color. This all white people look alike thing has gone too far. Padme faked her death and lived on Alderaan. The primary reason this theory exists is because Leia remembers her biological mother's face despite her dying immediately after popping her out. In canon, they explain this issue with she has the Force, and of course it was. Sorry theorists, Natalie Portman did not rise on the 3rd day. Grogu the Destroyer. A theory that is championed by the likes of Chris Ryans. The theory claims that a little green guy will become a villain in the galaxy after the events of The Rise of Skywalker. Just fall to the dark side. Believers of this theory point out the time when he choked an anti-vax transphobe playing a character who had little potential to begin with. Mace Windu hated Anakin because he wanted to be the chosen one. I have never taken Mace as the jealous type, and I think he's just tired of Anakin's hot-headedness.
Liar!
It's like wondering why there's so many Latin migrants who risk so much to come to America. It's almost like the US has destabilized their economies, their political processes, and fueled their drug empires. Desperate people just trying to find better lives for them and their children.
Keep your politics out of Star Wars, bro.
Leia was attracted to Luke. Now, we all know Luke was a horny simp for a sibling in the OT. But what about Leia? She only kissed Luke to make Han jealous, right? Before we go any further, let's discuss deleted scenes. I would say it's reasonable to suggest that if a deleted scene doesn't contradict anything in the film or the franchise, then it's canon. So when Bruce Banner tries to end his life, that happened. When Luke hangs out with his pilot friend with the 70s porn stash, that happened. So naturally, this scene happened.
Does it hurt? Nah, I'm fine. Leia, when I was out in that storm, I was real worried. You were worried. It got me thinking, you know, I might never get the chance.
What? Tell me.
I want you inside of me.
Without Klaud, the Resistance loses. Some of y'all may not even know who Klaud is, even though he's the namesake of this channel. Klaud is an engineer and a pilot who is built like a banana slug. He was the only character taking care of the Falcon when Finn, Poe, and R2-D2 get the transmission from the spy through Bulio and go lightspeed skipping.
What are you doing? Lightspeed skipping!
Without the Scrotal King, the system would fail, causing the major heroes and the Falcon to be eviscerated trying to go into hyperspace. So now the Resistance doesn't get a heads up on Palpatine and his fashionable First Order. They don't hunt for the MacGuffins, the Wayfinder, and the Dagger, which means they can't pass the information to General Black Don't Crack and Lady Daft Punk because Poe is the only character of the Resistance that has a connection to Kijimi. Meaning that even if the Resistance makes it to Exegol for the showdown, they have no citizen fleet. Remember the thousands upon thousands of regular people who joined when the chips were down for the Resistance to fight back? Without them, they will be decimated by the Final Order. The Emperor would rule supreme. So essentially, Klaud is Shaak Ti clones. Shaak Ti is a character with a complicated history within the Legends universe because of her multiple deaths. Once by the hand of Kovet Goro, then by the shittiest Skywalker, and finally by falling into a pit dressed like a Soul Calibur character. What if all this can be explained away with clones of Shaak Ti? I'd say it's definitely better than Luke. Decraniated nubs. For the uninitiated Star Wars fan, decraniation is a controversial medical practice where a doctor removes most or all of the head of a person and replaces it with a computer. It's not a fancy pants AI computer, trust me. It's some old bullshit. The procedure was done commonly by Ponda Baba and Dr. Evazan. The decraniated were purchased by the likes of Dryden Voss as a drone-like servant. And let's keep it a buck, they are being used as sex dolls. Meanwhile, Nubs was a Puda Jedi Padawan of the High Republic era, who was known to be adventurous and kind. Even though that's a while back in the timeline, we don't know how long Pudas live. We don't even know how far back the medical practice goes. Now, you as an audience member might want to ask, why is this your theory, Eric? What's your evidence that this will happen? And my answer for you is that I'm a fucking weird dude with weird thoughts. Geode Moon. Much like Nubs, there's another High Republic character who has caught my eye. Geode. He is a rough slab Jedi Vindian, perhaps you can smell.
What the rock is cooking!
Since Disney's acquisition, there has been a near total decanonization of the expanded universe material, but some ideas have been reused and served as inspiration for current canon, like Terras Kasi, Jackson, and the cloning of the Emperor. Put a pin in that. In the Legends continuity, Chewbacca died because he was crushed by a moon. But what if they bring back the idea post Episode 9? What if, for the past century, Geode had been growing in the vacuum of space, and he became the size of a moon? Maybe his rocky body flattens the Wookiee in front of his friends and his family that are barely acknowledged in canon. Padme is partially racist. Okay, hear me out. In Attack of the Clones, after Anakin pulled a George Custer on native alien parents and children, and Padme was informed, she consoles him with dry eyes. But in Revenge of the Sith, when her husband pulled a Adam Lanza on predominantly human children, she cries about them being slaughtered. By the difference of the emotional responses from Padme, it shows that she doesn't see Tusken Raiders as having the same amount of personhood as a human.
I wish they'd all go back to the desert.
Mutt Snoke theory. I like to preface that I don't believe it, but it's funny. Just in case you're not an Indiana Jones fan, Mutt Williams was the illegitimate son of the OG Fedora Tipper. The brash young man was introduced in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It was played by alleged domestic abuser Shia LaBeouf. Mutt and his parents, standing on top of a Peruvian pyramid, see goddamn aliens leave in a saucer. Then they all go home, Indy gets married, and excuse me, hold up. Nobody's gonna check on the site? Nobody's gonna investigate? Mutt seems like the character to do so. He probably grabbed a chunk of mural alien painting and tied it to his motorcycle. Then Mr. Slickback Hair gets abducted, whether he's in Peru, United States, or serving in Vietnam. They do experiments on him and then he starts to look all gray and lanky, just like them. They stab a cybernetic implant into his brain to tap into his anger of not having that true father figure in his life. He becomes a template for more pickled Snokes and a tool for the Emperor in a galaxy far, far away. He lives vicariously through Kylo Ren by manipulating him to kill Han Solo because their dads look so similar and he wants him to be dead. Snoke was a greaser in a former life. Zillo Ray theory. In Bad Batch Season 2, we see scientists from Mount Tantus taking in a zillobeast, a lightsaber-resistant murder gecko that can become stronger and bigger by absorbing electricity. Previously, we had seen Palpatine look upon the Zillo with interest because of how powerful it was. Mount Tantus is also the spot where they do crazy experimentation and clone Christmas sheaf. Wouldn't it make sense the mysterious scientist spliced the Emperor's DNA with that of a Zillo? I mean, it's vicious, it has tough skin, it can absorb electricity to make itself more, This seems familiar. So if Palps is part Zillo, so is his offspring, Rey. Don't worry nerds, I got more. In The Last Jedi, Rey gets a bad burn on her shoulder after fighting the Yeezy Fashion Knights. In the next film, it's completely gone. Sounds like some lizard-esque cell regeneration if you ask me. But Eric, she covered it up with the leather strap. Strap is too low to cover up the scar. Rey was also able to calm the Vexus snake. Lizard recognized lizard. And let's not forget when Rey sees the evil version of herself has sharp razor teeth. The lizard will arise in Rey. The question is, when?